Hey, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show, where I showed a very short 30-second clip from Anchors Away, which was a film that I scanned yesterday. It was tacked on to the end of another film called Tanks that I was scanning, and I didn't know that Anchors Away was tacked on the end. But what I did know was that the film was in really bad shape. Tanks was curled and was showing a lot of vinegar syndrome, so it stank. It actually, instead of smelling like vinegar, it actually smelled a lot like stinky feet. And I knew like halfway through there was some problems. You could see like on the reel there was problems. In fact, it was the film on the inner core was oozing and was sticking to the can. So when I pulled it out, there was like all this like sap. So I was like, I wonder what's going on here. And so you had two separate films, spliced together. And so I was running, and Tanks actually ran fairly well considering that it was curled. I didn't get the soundtrack off of it. Orson Welles supposedly does the soundtrack, and so I'm going to try to hunt down and see if there's a copy of the soundtrack that I can get out of it, because I had to throw the film away. It's in really bad shape. Excuse me, but I wanted to show you. Yeah, I'll show it again as we watch. Just kind of talk about what's going on here. Turn off the sound. All right, so you see, the film itself is curled, and the emulsion is like splintering off and is doing this weird kind of crystallization. And so you can see kind of an image through there, but it is crazy. And it's sad because I'm like, that would have been wonderful footage to have, but it's beautiful because it is so messed up. And basically the film broke at the end, which is what happened. So there you go. So that's sometimes what we deal with. Sometimes a film, we have the equipment to scan films that are fairly shrunk, but the damage is so bad that you can't get anything out of it. And so if this was like one-of-a-kind footage, it might be something where I would attempt to scan the whole thing and go through it, and would have to clean the scanner afterwards because it would be gooey. If it was original material, it was important. But there's copies of this floating around I've seen. I think National Archives has really decent copies of it, so it was okay to let it go. But I figured you'd be interested to see what we got here. Okay, so I've been going through and finding films in my notes which supposedly have good songs, and as we saw yesterday, that is not necessarily the case. What's going on?
I was going to say hi, because I'm going to see everybody next week.
This is Katrina, my partner. Hey.
Hi.
So we are reviewing more than 30 tunes this weekend, or the rest of this week, and are going to have a Sweet 16 that you guys will be voting on. And so, like I said, I'm going through my notes of that say great song. And as we saw yesterday, great song does not necessarily mean great song with words. So there was a really great synth thing of some puppies nursing that I, for some reason, made a note of. So my notes are not always the most trustworthy. So, but this film supposedly has a good song. Excuse me. Pollen. So this is 10 Little Indians. I'm sorry, 10 Little Engines. Here we go.
Hey, Mac, there's one car to another. You mind getting forward, Mac? What do you think? You're the only car?
So she says to me, she says, just between us sedans, you're looking a little faded lately, you know.
Well, of all the nerve. And by the way she's painted up.
She may have traveled, but she certainly hasn't acquired any polish. If I were her,
I'll tell you, kid, in my day I could take any of them.
Even those imported sports cars?
Them foreigners? Don't talk about foreigners to me. Why, I remember the first time I met...
They never change, do they? You mean the drivers? I guess not. Seems funny, too. They make all kinds of improvements in us, but they never seem to improve drivers.
That's supposed to drive.
And these are the results. Just look around you.
Yeah, it looks like the happy hunting ground of a lot of engines.
Look at them go. Just like a bunch of wild engines.
Wow, look at that one.
10 little engines, all friends of mine, one caught tailgating. And now there are 9. Nine little engines, one driver was late, dead yield right away. And now there are 8.
Stop it! I don't want to hear about accidents.
You'd better listen. It's the facts of life.
8 little engines opened up too fast for conditions. And now there are 7. Seven little engines out to get the kicks. What were they dreaming? And now there are 6.
No, 5 little engines. 5? Yeah, who's the guy he hit?
Nice family, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Too bad the old man leads such a fast life.
5 little engines, pedals to the floor. Too fast, too late. And now there are 4.
Another engine bites the dust.
I don't consider that very funny.
It wasn't meant to be.
I thought the sign said, do not pass.
They don't read sign language, especially when they're in a hurry.
And they always are. Looks like follow the leader, huh?
More like Russian roulette.
Four little engines, mad as can be, passed where they shouldn't. And now there are 3.
Make that 2. 2? You know, the guy he hit.
Oh, yeah.
Speeding, passing on hills and curves. Where are they all going in such a hurry?
Look around you, honey.
Ah, don't worry. They're turning out new cars and people faster than they're knocking them off.
So far.
2 little engines, repairs left undone. 4 cars, bad brakes. there is one.
Here's one you've heard before.
Come on, have another one.
No thanks. Just a couple after work's enough for me. I'm 1 over quarter now.
Okay.
So long, gotta run.
It's always just one more.
Yeah. Just one deadly drink more.
One little engine, one drink too many. Just felt a little high. And now there are none.
Why? Why does it happen?
Tailgating.
Failing to yield right of way.
Driving too fast for conditions.
Not paying attention.
Speeding.
Passing in the wrong place?
Failing to get repairs.
Driving after drinking.
10 little engines, one by one.
Oh man, it just cuts off. That's too bad. I think that's a good song. What do you think? Yeah, it's catchy. It's what we call a toe tapper. And in case you don't remember or you don't know, we are compiling some of our catchiest earworm toe tapping jingles from our films that we're going to compete with Found Footage Festival. They just announced their final winner after their month-and-a-half long tournament. We're not going to go that far. I mean, we're just going to do next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're going to pare from 16 down to 4, and then we're going to compete with them at some point. So, pretty great. I don't know if it will make the cut, because we right now have... whoop, wrong tab. We have 33 songs. So I'm going to have to figure that out. And some of these are based on suggestions that you picked. I can delete the food 1, 2, 3, 4 song because that was not good. Yeah. All right. What else I got lined up for you? Bunch of stuff. I was taken a little bit off guard because I was setting things up and one of my computers crashed like mid setup, so it was annoying. But what I want to know is, what is a map? Maybe this film will answer my question.
Anne. The letter tells Anne about Betty's new home. Betty described her bedroom. To make her description clear, Betty drew a picture of her room. But this picture doesn't look like a bedroom. Have you ever seen a drawing like this before? Betty's drawing is a plan of her room. We might call it a kind of map. It shows the shape of Betty's room and the furniture, and how her furniture is arranged in the room. Betty is going to mail the drawing to Anne. If you were Anne, could you read this room plan? Later, we will read it. But first, let us see what a room plan really is. Here is a living room with one piece of furniture in it, a table. We can see the legs of the table. Suppose we rise up and over this room and look straight down. Now we can see the whole living room. Let's draw lines around the sides of the room to show its shape. Do you see the table in the center of the room? It looks round from up here. The legs cannot be seen. We'll draw a line around the table like this. Now, if we take the table away, we can still see the shape of the table and where it was in the room. What we have left is really a plan of the room. Here is the same room again, but now there is more furniture in the room. A couch and a lamp. Again, let's imagine that we can rise up and over the room. First, let us draw the sides of the room. There's the table still in the center of the room, and there's the couch against the wall. The couch is shaped about like this. On the other side of the room is the lamp. From up here, it looks round like the table, only smaller. If we take away the table, couch, and lamp, we can still see from the drawing just how they were shaped and where they stood. Now some more furniture has been added to our living room. Can you find the 3 new pieces? There's a big easy chair, a radio, and a small chair. So let's again move up and over. And there's the shape of the room just as it was before. Can you see the table and the lamp and the couch? There's the lamp and the table. But where is the couch? Why, it's been moved. Now it is over here. But the shape still looks the same. The radio now stands where the couch used to be. The radio is shaped like this. A small chair stands by the table. Over in the corner is another chair, but it's bigger and shaped like this. Now you don't need the real furniture. By looking at this drawing, you can tell just how the furniture was arranged. You can also see the shape of each piece. Remember how everything looked? The table goes right there. The couch is now along the wall. The lamp stands by the couch. There's the small chair by the table. The radio is by the wall. The big chair is in the corner. Now let's see if we can read Betty's bedroom plan. If we could see through her plan, it would look like this. Can we picture a bedroom from this? According to Betty's drawing, Her bed goes on this side of the room. A chest of drawers is against the rear wall. She has a big chair in the opposite corner, and there is a radio next to it. Betty has a small table and a lamp near her bed. She also has 2 small chairs in her room, here and here. Now we see Betty's bedroom as it really is, not just as she drew it. A drawing like the one that we have just used is called a room plan. If we want to make a plan of something larger, such as Betty's neighborhood or the town where she lives, our drawing would be called a map. Here we see Betty's neighborhood as it looks from an airplane. And here is a picture of the town. Now, if we remember how a room plan is drawn, we should be able to draw a simple map of Betty's town. Let us try. First, we'll draw lines to show where the town limits are. Now, let us draw some other lines that are important. First, those that show a few of the streets. Main Street, Cherry Street, William Street, and Pine Street. Here is Betty's school, and here is her home. Now let's draw a line around the park that is near her house, and another line around the store where Betty often goes on errands. Now, if we take the picture away, we have a map of Betty's town. Can you find Betty's school? Where is Betty's house? And where is the store? Maps are fun to draw. Why don't you try to make one of the neighborhood around your school, or a plan of your bedroom? Maybe you could even draw a simple map of your whole town.
All right. So that film really didn't answer the question. It kind of did, but really, I don't know. It was a little too elementary for me. Just a little too much. Wow, this film is awesome. I haven't seen this in quite a while. So someone mentioned that 10 Little Indians is based on 10 Little Indians, obviously. 10 Little Indians is not great. As far as its origins. But I'm hoping that 10 Little Indians is enough of a separation dealing with white people killing each other in cars that we won't have to think about it, the problematic aspect. But I do know it's problematic. 10 Little Indians is problematic. Watching also kids playing in the back of a station wagon and the father speeding is also problematic. And what's interesting about that film, I think, is it doesn't talk about the human lives. It talks about the engines being junked, which is kind of an interesting take on it. But, all right. So this next film is another candidate in the that someone has recommended, and this was also on the CD that we came out with a long time ago. It's Acid, Story of LSD, and we haven't shown an LSD film in a while, so hooray! Now it's a longer film, but yeah, let's watch it.
Purple, orange, green, and I found purple, orange, green. What you doing to me?
It's so phony. It's really phony. You can't put a trip down on film. I mean, colors do look pretty, but there's so much more.
D. Lysergic acid diethylamide. LSD. It is colorless, tasteless, odorless. One of a whole family of hallucinogens, both natural and synthetic, that includes STP, peyote, mescaline, psilocybin. LSD is the most powerful of all. Known as acid, a single ounce is capable of producing 300,000 so-called trips, illusions, distortions of perception, and thinking. That's LSD. That's acid. Millions of words have been written and spoken about it. Laws have been passed against it. Cults have sprung up around it. Individuals using it have experienced hope, suffering, tragedy. But for all the controversy, what is known today about LSD is fragmented, not altogether. In the next few minutes, we will be exploring these fragments, a complex mixture of superstition, medical research, personal experiences, a history that began yesterday. In 1951, a small provincial village in southern France named Saint-Esprit was stricken by a strange malady. Overnight, residents of all ages, hundreds of them, awakened to sharp pains, high fevers, mass insomnia, and incredible hallucinations. One man spent the hours of day and night endlessly counting the panes in his window. Another compulsively wrote the same words over and over. Small girls saw tigers in her room and blood dripping from the ceiling. All complained of severe burning sensations. More than 300 cases had been counted before the plague was identified as St. Anthony's fire, a poisoning produced by ergot, a fungus that grew on rye, which later was milled and baked into bread. A direct relationship between St. Anthony's fire and LSD-25 has never been clearly established to this day. But those initial reports from Saint-Esprit excited the attention of the young scientist who 15 years before had first synthesized LSD from ergot. On accidentally ingesting a tiny amount of the drug, the discoverer, Dr. Albert Hoffman, had experienced symptoms remarkably similar to those now occurring in the tiny village.
I noted with dismay that my environment was undergoing progressive change. I had the greatest difficulty in expressing myself. My visual fields wavered. I was overcome by a fear that I was going crazy.
That first LSD-induced psychosis set off a flurry of laboratory testing.
We're studying the effects of hallucinogenic drugs, both LSD and mescaline, on behavior of rats. Now we're giving him the LSD. We're going to see its effects on his behavior. Our ultimate goal is our understanding of why they do certain things to human behavior. There seems to be an interaction between the effects of the drug and stress, which fits in what we know about the effects of hallucinogenic drugs in respect of good and bad trips. When you give a large dose of either mescaline or LSD, one of the things that you notice is it produces catatonic behavior. Like this animal had a large dose of LSD, and you can see how relaxed he is, and you swing him around. The difference between a rat without any hallucinogen. One of the main things, you put him in a very bizarre posture and he just stays there, which is not true for a normal animal. carry fights and struggles. This animal just stays there. They call this catatonia.
Catatonia is often observed in schizophrenics, as are hallucinations. As small amounts of LSD provoked similar reactions in normals, it began to be speculated that in certain individuals, their bodies were generating either this chemical or one much like it, and that the presence of it was creating schizophrenia.
After several years of research, we have found out that there were definitely more differences than similarities between the LSD reaction and schizophrenia.
Dr. Stanislav Graf, born and raised in Czechoslovakia, today heads up research at Maryland Psychiatric Research Center.
Schizophrenia. Our present opinion about LSD is that LSD is something like an amplifier or catalyst which just manifests the unconscious processes in the brain.
We began our LSD research in the early 1960s. And it began as a very unusual program, a program to research the influence of these unusual psychedelic drugs on normal people. How did these drugs influence the psyche, the unconscious? What did it tell us about the inner space of normal people?
Dr. Jean Houston, with her husband, Dr. Robert Masters, directs New York City's Foundation for Mind Research. They were among the first to use LSD as a means of probing psychic depths. And in this simulated case, she shows how the drug worked as a tool for mental research.
And of course, this research required a great deal of preparation and control. All of our subjects were first medically screened, then they were psychiatrically screened because we were dealing with what is termed normals. We discovered that there seemed to be 4 major depth levels of the psyche, which emerged over the course of the 8 or 10 or 14 hours of the LSD. LSD is very unusual in that under carefully controlled scientific research circumstances, it can tell us an enormous amount about the mind and about using the mind more creatively without drugs. LSD can also, under these black market or illegal circumstances, make people extremely impressionable, so that if they are in circumstances which is negative or fearful, they may sustain that fear or that negativism for months or even years to come.
This was a bad trip, right? How many times have you tripped altogether? About 7. About 7. How many of those times were bad trips?
About 5.
So most of them would be bad trips.
New York City police now bring young people on bad trips to Bellevue Hospital, where Dr. William Frosch is Associate Medical Director of the Psychiatric Division.
Why do you do it again, then?
There was a concert in Central Park and I was up there.
Here's somebody who's had a previous good trip. He went into this trip thinking that this would also be a good one. There was music he wanted to listen to. The setting was Central Park. But somehow, something went wrong. Are you upset about anything?
No, I feel that at that time I needed it.
He is still somewhat under the drug. His responses seem to be somewhat slow.
I guess the acid just brought out everything, all the anxieties I had, all the emotions I had.
The unfortunate thing is that we are not able often to predict in advance who will have a bad trip when.
This is what we call a bad trip because he has much more fear than he had before. There's an interaction between the stress of the electric shock and the drug. Well, when people have these bad trips, their disturbed behavior is very much closer to what's seen in schizophrenia. It's only the good trips which are very dissimilar from schizophrenia, that is, primarily visual, perceptual distortions rather than paranoia and delusions, which you do get with bad trips.
This young man has just taken street acid. It will take effect in approximately 1 hour. Even though this will not be a bad trip, experienced users question the goodness of any drug that turns one who takes part in life into a mere sightseer.
I'm getting all kind of really nice things with the leaves. That's kind of melting together, you know. Melting together and then coming apart and vibrating. But it's all moving. That's what's incredible.
How many trips have you had?
I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 30, I guess.
Any bummers?
Yeah. I had a bummer in New York once.
New York is a bummer.
Well, yeah, New York's a bummer. But it was even more of a bummer because it was out on the streets. of New York. You know, I was lost for a while. And that was the bad part, being lost in New York all by myself. The circumstances what made it bad. Being in the city, being alone. It was horrifying. It was terrifying. Oh, wow! I just followed them right home. There they are. There's the whole bunch of them. Mommy and Daddy and all the kids and the cousins and the relatives and everybody.
Dinner.
Just little things like just, you know, a group of people hovered over, you know, an anthill. Just watching the ants scurry around. It's kind of a going back into your childhood, too, I think.
When you're stoned, you can get hung up and, like, stare at a piece of dirt for a day. When I was dropping acid, one time I was doing that. I was staring at a piece of dirt. And a little baby came up to me and was staring at this piece of dirt in the same way. And I realized that was really crazy. I mean, it was all right for a baby, but for a 20-year-old, it was crazy. I stopped dropping acid. I really got tired of just tripping around and grinning.
Well, let me tell you about the first time I took acid. I had been pretty confused and lost in my life at the time. I really didn't know what I wanted to do or who I was, really. I had ideas and I had feelings, but I really didn't have a clear picture of what I wanted out of life. And I had a friend from out of town who was into all the drugs at the time, and at that time, acid had just come out, and he gave me a sugar cube. And my reaction was, I don't want to take it, I'm afraid. And he reassured me that it would be all right, and I took it. You know, I figured what...
New way of living, I gotta find a new way of life. I gotta find a new way of living, dropping a tear.
Young people today are identified with music festivals. Young people in every age have had their own unique thing to identify with. But there's something about the current thing that generates fear in parents and occupies the weekends of young doctors like Sid Schnall.
I guess our experience has shown that there is a fairly large number of bad drug trips at these festivals. And so we have usually a separate tent set up, which we call the trip tent. When the person comes in with this type of problem, the only way you can make contact is physically, by hugging them, holding their hand, and trying to make them feel the presence of your body. And by holding a person, you give them a certain reality, the feeling of someone near them, someone who's helping them. We don't like to give any sort of drug to the people who are having a bad trip. This seems to lead to an increased frequency of flashbacks, and it reinforces the concept of taking drugs to solve whatever problem there is. LSD is not manufactured by any company in the United States, nor is mescaline or the other hallucinogenics, and so the stuff that is available is of very poor quality. This is why we ask the kids who come into the tent what they took, how much of it, when they took it, and if they have a sample of it.
This is street acid picked up at the music festival we've just seen.
Most of these samples are probably not pure.
Dr. Wolfgang Vogel is a biochemist. In his laboratory, he isolates and identifies chemicals in street acid. Chemicals we expect, chemicals that sometimes surprise us.
These spots are caused by a minor tranquilizer. These down here are probably spots caused by strychnine.
There is some feeling amongst heads that by taking LSD with strychnine in it, that they get a faster high and a better high. And sometimes contains more strychnine than LSD. I don't know if they were tripping or not, but they were sure a great mess from the strychnine.
LSD was first considered a dangerous drug and made illegal in 1965.
It's so easy to get acid. You can get it anywhere.
Where there's a little chemistry lab, there's somebody making acid.
The penalty for sale and possession is a felony, which makes the person liable to imprisonment or more than a year.
You usually get it from a friend, or people deal it. If you're paying more than like $2, you're getting burnt.
The handing of a dose of LSD from one individual to another is a delivery or a gift. And even that simple act constitutes sale under the law.
With these black market situations, catch as catch can, this bathtub gin LSD, it's one of the most dangerous things that has happened in the 20th century. particularly for young people, because young people, their egos are not together. they're not together as a self. And what can happen is LSD can act as a de-gluing agent, rather like Humpty Dumpty. And when they come out of the session, they're not apt to be put together in the same way. And they may have actually lost part of their basic psychological cohesiveness.
The whole lifestyle is one of a fantasy world, simple, very, very childlike. And there's just this happy fantasy, smiling, almost moronic kind of existence. Like when I was living in Haight-Ashbury and everybody was taking acid, well, everybody thought they loved each other and they talked about it, but nobody was really close to anybody else.
I feel like I have to do something, And you don't really want to have to do anything, You just want to just trip.
Well, what I found was that you really do lose your ego. By the time I finished taking acid, I don't think I had any ego left, and I was really ready to kill myself because there was nothing left. There was just no sense of myself left at all.
And the kids who are taking acid who talk about love and involvement and, oh, I love you and I'm just loving life and I love you, man, and I dig you. And it's so easy to sit and say, I love. But it's another thing to get up and do something that involves your life, your energy, your feelings. One of the things that happens with acid is one detail becomes very important. There was a stone wall that had moss on it. So when I painted it, I just covered it with green. And I did the same thing with as many colors out there that I could see. And the end result is that the painting is an extremely colorful painting and that it basically works. And when I look at it, it really makes me feel like I'm on acid.
Many people claim LSD enhances creativity. They say an artist performs better under the influence of the drug. This is not necessarily so.
I have never really run a controlled study concerning the effect of LSD on creativity, but I have given it to many artists. They usually didn't have too much success in the session because in spite of the fact that they had very interesting experiences, LSD at the same time seemed to impair their motor coordination and they were not able to express what they were seeing. This we saw, for example, in the experiment here with a friend of mine from Prague, Paul Firlinger.
Well, after I took the drug, I believe it was orally, in the beginning it was perfectly natural for me to draw. And then after 20 or 30 minutes, the drug started taking effect on me. And everybody was trying to encourage me to draw. Look at me, what do you think I look like? Draw a picture of my face. How do you see me now? I tried to draw. So I picked it up, Flowmaster pencil, and suddenly it felt so thick as if I were holding a log in my hand. And with that, you just can't draw anything. So I threw it away and I gave up.
So our usual experience was that the artists were not able to perform very well while they were under the influence of LSD. On the other hand, quite a few of the artists were able to remember what they have experienced in the session and use it as a source of inspiration for the canvases they painted after they had the experience.
Frequently, persons taking LSD under controlled conditions reported a new ecstatic sense of unity with all of life. Religious symbols seemed to come from nowhere. It was found that LSD relieved some terminal cancer patients of pain, depression, and anxiety. With this discovery, it was decided to try LSD along with extensive psychotherapy in the treatment of alcoholics.
For the past 7 years, we've been treating persons who suffer from alcohol abuse here at the Topeka VA hospital with the drug LSD-25.
Dr. David Dean is assistant director of a federally approved LSD therapy program. Patients are physically and mentally screened before admission. LSD is administered twice over a 26-day period. This is the second and largest dose for these patients. What you'll see here is real. The setting is extremely important.
The more home-like or informal the setting, the greater opportunity the individual has of really discovering himself, of coming to know who he really is.
I don't know how to explain this, but I actually saw it. It actually scared me at first. Was the body of me slowly dissolving. The skin, all the meat would go completely from under my skin. I couldn't see any blood. Finally, only the skin was hanging on the bone, and I was lying as a skeleton, but completely conscious of my heart beating and being still like I had a mind.
Just relax. We're here to take care of you. Don't fight.
That was the earlier part of the experience, and then later was this triumphant march that I had. Just feeling of being on this white charger with a sword up in the air, you know, and the crowds were roaring. I guess the music in the background, I wasn't even conscious of the music, but I could actually hear the crowd and the noise of the triumphal march like the Romans used to come back from battle. I don't know. It gave me a big feeling inside, you know.
First thing that I could say about it was that it was the first time that I ever really felt free to actually let myself go and just do the things that I wanted to do. And I did experience some time there where it seemed as if all these people that I had been or tried to be were just leaving my body. Miss Perry, who was sitting beside me, I don't know if I was shaking or what, but she just put her hand on my arm. And it seemed like all the tension and everything in my body just flowed through my body and went to the point where she touched my hand and just went into her hand.
Of the 1,200 individuals who have completed the treatment program now, somewhat over 50% have remained abstinent for at least 2 years or beyond.
I certainly don't feel like now that I would want to drink. It seems trivial. It just doesn't seem necessary.
We know what alcohol does to the body, the liver, the brain. We know that LSD helps to curb certain cases of alcohol abuse. But what else do we know about this admittedly powerful drug?
Well, a great deal has been done with studies on LSD, and the result is probably we do not know what LSD does, how it produces its effects on the mind. We really do not know, does LSD really produce chromosomal damage?
Chromosomes contain genes which pass on hereditary traits from parent to offspring.
Does LSD really produce malformations? Does LSD have some effects on the body which we are not even aware of yet? We don't know, and I think this really is at the moment the risk and the biggest danger in using LSD.
We are not able often to predict in advance whether or not an individual at a particular moment in their life is going to have a bad trip or a good trip.
There is no fear, there's no paranoia so bad as a psychedelic paranoia. Because under usual, ordinary paranoia or fear, you can get out and you can run like the dickens. You have someplace to go. But in a psychedelic paranoia, you are locked up in your own skin. You are frightened to the death of your own existence.
Because this dream world that you're living in is real to you at that time. And I can't see these kids that take it out in the street or wherever they take it. I'd be afraid to be scared to death if I were to take it that way.
LSD is like atomic energy. It has enormous potentiality for good or evil.
And you don't really want to have to do anything, you know? You just want to just trip.
It really drains your energy.
I was so loving on acid, but when I stopped taking acid, or when I was down, I wasn't loving anymore.
The whole lifestyle is one of a fantasy world. It's very, very childlike. Almost like a moronic, smiling kind of existence.
So we have something that is a Pandora's box. It has tremendous potential for good if used wisely, like atomic energy. Or it can provide for a whole holocaust of mental Hiroshimas.
I took a trip to find myself and me, and I saw love in purple, orange, green. My mind ain't feeling right, my mind ain't feeling right, my mind ain't feeling right, my mind mind ain't feeling right. I gotta find a new way of living. I gotta find a new way of life. I gotta find a new way of living. Dropping a 10. Acid. What you doing to me? Acid. What you doing to me? Acid. Oh, what you doing to me? Acid. Get out of my life. 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 Get out of
That song is awesome. It's definitely in the Sweet 16. And I'm sure that it's going to get that this film is going to get some copyright things. It's not going to. They did not stop the stream, but people love using samples from these films for their drug-related songs, in their dance songs and all that stuff. So we'll definitely use that. Excuse me. My goodness. Let's shift the gears radically here and watch this film. I don't have a copy of this film, but I've scanned it, did it for, or I processed it for National Archives, and this is a Library of Congress copy, but it's a great thing. We're going to run over a little bit time-wise, but you're cool. This is a weird sponsored film about house paint, but in a crazy roundabout way. So see if you can figure this out. So enjoy.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. One American town looks like any other when you see it from an airplane window. Trees line the quiet residential streets, and there's usually a highway running through to an industrial area where many town people work. But in every town, you'll find houses like this, run down, neglected. Trash and litter disfigure the house and yard. An eyesore, yes, and as you'll see, much more. A house that's neglected is the house that may be doomed in the atomic age. What would happen to such a town if it were on the outer fringe of an attack directed at a nearby city? We can answer that question, in part at least, even though it hasn't happened yet. A series of civil defense tests were made to discover the effects of atomic heat on American homes. I am going to show you how protective measures can help guard your home against the heat effects of an atomic explosion. This is the Nevada Proving Ground, where tests were made on miniature houses and various stages of upkeep inside and out. These tests were also made on common fire hazards like dead grass, old leaves, discarded newspapers, and fence structures. Here are 5 fences placed far enough from the explosion that they could survive the blast. The fences in the middle are built of decayed wood. Dry grass and litter simulate conditions you've seen in too many alleys and backyards in slum areas. The trash, litter, and dead grass are perfect kindling for the unprotected and unpainted wood of the fence itself. The moments tick away as we await the bomb and the fireball. The light flash and the heat or thermal wave, then the blast wave. You'll remember the 3 middle fences are built of rotten wood, unpainted and surrounded by trash. They are immediately ignited. The two outer fences without litter are slower to ignite. Decayed, combustible wood surfaces like these fences are readily ignited by heat flash. Likewise, some types of interiors are easily ignited. This will be demonstrated in the next test. Here are two miniature frame houses, identical in structure, both in good condition and well painted outside. Sturdily mounted cameras in front of the houses are to record the effect of heat flash. Large windows purposely expose the interiors to the flash. In the house on the right, all the earmarks of untidy housekeeping. Newspapers and magazines lying about, and cluttered tables. Now the house on the left, identical to the other, but spick and span. Trash has been thrown away. Tabletops are tidy. Two homes, one a fire trap, even under ordinary conditions. The other cleaned up and fresh with better, safer housekeeping. Both ready for the test bomb. The light flash and the heat wave. Then the blast tears away part of each roof. Let's see it again in stop motion. First, the light flash and the thermal or heat wave that only chars the painted outer surface of both houses. Then the blast. The cluttered room of the house on the right bursts into flame. In a few moments, the interior is completely ablaze. The fire that started inside spreads rapidly to the house itself, although the house on the left still shows no exterior flames. Now the house on the right burns as fiercely as if it had been deliberately fired with kindling. The lack of fire-safe housekeeping has doomed this house to destruction. In the other house, with its better, safer housekeeping, one small fire was readily extinguished afterward. Damage? Yes, but the house still stands. One house standing, one house leveled, both painted and cleaned up outside. Identical houses, except for inside conditions and housekeeping. Now, our third test. 3 identical miniature frame houses, each with varying exterior conditions, all the same distance from the point of the explosion. The house on the right, an eyesore. But you've seen these same conditions in your own hometown. Old, unpainted wood, and look at the paper, leaves, and trash in the yard. In a moment, you'll see the results of atomic heat flash on this house. The house on the left, typical of many homes across the nation. Heavily weathered, dry wood in run-down condition. This house is the product of years of neglect. It has not been painted regularly. It's dry and rotten. A tinderbox ready to turn into a blazing torch. The house in the middle, in good condition, with a clean, unlittered yard. The exterior has been painted with ordinary, good quality house paint. Light painted surfaces reflect heat, and the paint also protects the wood from weathering and moisture damage. Let's watch the test now and see what happens under atomic heat. Now let's go back and see it again in stop motion. The light flash, the heat wave, and clouds of dust. Keep your eye on the house on the right. Notice how the heat wave affects it. There's the fire starting in the trash surrounding the house. Now it spreads to the house itself. In a moment, the blast wave, and here it comes. The house on the right is the first to ignite. The trash serves as kindling for the dry, weathered wood. The house on the left smolders for a few moments. Looks almost as if it will not burn, and then bursts into flame. The house on the right continues to burn. Two houses are a total loss, but the well-kept and painted house in the middle still stands. Which of these is your house? This one? The house on the right, dilapidated with paper, dead grass, litter everywhere. The house on the left, unpainted, run down, neglected. Is this your house? The house in the middle, cleaned up, painted up and fixed up, exposed to the same searing atomic heat wave, did not catch fire. Close examination revealed only a slight charring of the painted outer surface. Yes, the White House in the middle survived an atomic heat flash. These civil defense tests have proven how important upkeep is to our houses and towns. Now it's up to us, the people, to take decisive action. All right, you say, what can I do about it? What can my community do? All over America, towns and cities are organizing local cleanup, paint-up, fix-up campaigns. Boy and Girl Scouts and school children of all ages are told how they can help by organizing teams to clean up alleys and backyards. See that you help by removing all of the litter, junk, old newspapers, and trash. They collect and pile up. Your community needs this help. Do those long-delayed repair jobs now. Trim your shrubbery and trees, weed and plant flowers. Keep your block cleaned up. Beauty, cleanliness, health, and safety are the four basic doctrines that protect our homes, our cities. You've seen the tests. You know the story. Join up with your friends and neighbors for a better, safer community. It's also good civil defense, which is everyone's responsibility. The dingy house on the left, the dirty and littered house on the right, or the clean white house in the middle. It is your choice. The reward may be survival.
That film is nuts. I can't remember if I looked up the national cleanup, paint up, that campaign to see who did it, but I feel like this was made by a lobbyist organization for people to make paint. But what I like about it is, if you don't really know anything about atomic tests, you might come to the conclusion that they were setting off all these atomic blasts just to do these individual tests. Like, all right, well, we've set up this situation. Well, let's see what happens when we detonate an atomic bomb. It's just to prove a point that you should keep your yard clean and you should paint your house. And Oh, America, you guys are nuts. All right. Of course, that was not the case. They were filming all this stuff beforehand. They had an atomic blast, which they were doing scores of different types of tests, hundreds of tests on different things. And it just happened. Then they go back and they film what's happening in this certain situation. But there were lots of tests going on. It's kind of like a International Space Station, or it used to be a shuttle mission. Shuttle missions would do lots and lots of tests. They would take up all this equipment to do all these experiments. Anyways, thanks for tuning in today. It was great to actually hear two good songs versus previous days where we were, not every song was good. Please buy me coffee. Obviously, I needed it today just to clear out the pollen that's circulating through my body. Hit like and subscribe. Those are great ways to tell our social media overlords that I should survive the coming revolution. And go to avgeeks.com if you'd like to see other stuff that we've done over the years. I'll be back tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Hopefully my computer won't crash halfway through and throw me for a loop. Obviously, I was off all day because of that. The timing of it was just horrible. Anyways, everybody have a good rest of your day. We will see you very, 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 very soon. Please rewind and love each other. Take care. And we will see you tomorrow.